Hello, this is the second part of my previously recorded message on Do You Believe in Miracles? And I recorded that message basically for one reason. I wanted to tell you about a few things that had happened in my life and let you know that there are, at least as far as I can see, good reason to believe in possibilities, that miraculously good things can happen, and that miracles are, at least from my point of view, a reality. But I also stated in that message that miracles are mysterious and sometimes inexplicable. There's not so much a formula that you can use to get a miracle when you want one, but it's more like they basically just sort of come out of the blue, like a lightning bolt out of a clear blue sky, and they just happen when you need them. And it's not a formula that you follow to get a miracle, but miracles basically just happen, apparently according to the sovereignty of God. Miracles just come out of the blue. It's not so much a matter of begging for a miracle or believing that you're going to get a miracle or anything like that. They just happen. But there are awful lot of people running around though, and you see them on the religious channels like Trinity Broadcasting Network and Word and Daystar, and a lot of them buy time on other stations. You have a lot of people running around who will try to tell you that you have it within you to get miracles whenever you want them, that you can speak faith-filled words and things like that, and if you believe and never doubt that something good is going to happen, that you'll get that miracle as long as you believe and you never doubt. And you also send some organization a bunch of money. Of course you got to send money to organizations. I mean, you can't expect to get miracles for free. You don't expect that, do you? It's strange, because Jesus performed a lot of miracles for free, but these prosperity preachers seem to believe that in order to get miracles, you need to send those folks money. And also you need to have positive thoughts. And you have to believe that what you want is going to happen. You have to believe it, and you have to not doubt it. And you have to speak the right words and all these things. And this is a formula to get a miracle. That you can just sort of conjure up a miracle through faith, through believing and not doubting, saying the right words, having the right frame of mind, sending money to organizations so people like Creflo Dollar can buy private jet aircraft so they can live the good life. All kinds of people on all kinds of media telling people that, and a lot of people believe it. Why do they believe it? Because they have trouble in their lives, and for somebody to tell them that they can get a miracle if they want one, hell, they're telling people what they want to hear. People want to hear that if they've got some terminal disease, they can get a miracle and get a cure and it can go away. And yes, miracles can happen. Cancer can be cured inexplicably, but there's no formula that you can use to guarantee yourself a miracle. That's mostly a lie. That's mostly nonsense, because if you look at the Holy Bible from Genesis to Revelation, what you will see is that the people of God, the most righteous people who ever lived, as far as we know, experienced suffering in their lives. You see it with Joseph, you see it with Job, you see it with the Old Testament prophets, you see it with Moses, you see it with St. Paul, especially the New Testament, and you see it with a lot of other people in the New Testament. And then there was the Church of Macedonia, they were praised for their great faith, and yet they lived in poverty. And then there's this chapter in the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, called the faith chapter, and people who experienced all kinds of terrible things were praised for their faith. And yet these days you have these prosperity peoples telling you that if you experience bad things in your life, if you have illness, if you have major problems, financial problems and things like that, they're telling you your faith is insufficient, when actually in the New Testament, people who were extremely poor were praised for their great faith, and people who suffered and died are listed in a chapter called the faith chapter. So what's really going on with all this stuff? Well, in the minds of an awful lot of people, the greatest badge of honor that they can possibly have, the way to influence people and get power and obtain money is to convince people that they have a direct line to heaven, that they are a messenger from God. And it's not enough just to be thought of by a lot of these people as someone who speaks the truth, someone who actually speaks messages from God, but they also want to prove that they are a messenger of God by telling people that they can get miracles, or maybe even appearing to perform miracles. And so you have a lot of these televangelists who will parade people onto their shows, who are going to tell their stories, and supposedly they followed some formula, some faith formula, and then they got a miracle, and you don't know if there's any truth to it or not. There's this guy based in Colorado Springs. He has a thick Texas accent, which he's never seen fit to try to work on or anything like that. But he tells people that his son died, and he actually raised the boy, well, that's a young man, I think, raised the young man from the dead. So supposedly through his faith, he raised a person from the dead, and he's never presented one shred of evidence to back that up. You know about these healings that are claimed by televangelists, where they're always representing that people have been healed of all kinds of diseases and injuries through their ministry and all that sort of thing. There have been extensive efforts made by medically qualified people to verify a lot of these claims, and you know what happens? They can't verify them most of the time. Now, I'm not saying I don't believe in miracles. I definitely do believe that miracles occur. I expressed that in the previous video. But what I'm saying is that a lot of these televangelists, a lot of these people you see on the religious channels, are feeding people this messages that people want to hear, so that they can benefit from it, so that they can be thought of as somebody great, so they can be believed to be people who are messengers of God. And a lot of times they're not. In fact, I think most of what you see on TVN, Daystar, and some of those channels is actually nonsense. If you want to see something that's actually spiritual, I'm not Catholic, but I like EWTN far better than any of those people. But, you know, it's a badge of honor. It's the highest honor that people can possibly have in their minds, and it's a way to great wealth. If you can have people believing that you are a messenger from God, and you can demonstrate that by alleged miracles, and you can persuade people with your arguments. And how do they persuade people with their arguments? Why, when there's so much evidence in the Bible that this prosperity gospel, name and claim and believe it, receive it stuff, when there's so much evidence that that's just nonsense because the people of God did in fact suffer a lot, how do they get people to believe otherwise? It's pretty simple. They do it the way American conservatives do in explaining political matters. They cherry pick. They tell you things out of biblical passages that they want you to believe. But the problem is, it's what they're not telling you is just as important as what they're telling you. It's easy to deceive people if you take things out of context and if you cherry pick. And that's how a lot of these prosperity people, the miracle for sale people, that's how they succeed. That's how they get their followers, by cherry picking. Now, you know, you have these alleged miracles and these stories that people tell and things like that, but beyond that, you do have some of these TV programs, and you do have sometimes churches in your local communities where paranormal things seem to actually occur. So what is actually behind that? A lot of people are not going to like me using that word paranormal, but we might as well call it what it is, paranormal. You have things going on like supposedly slaying in the spirit. If you've never heard that, you ought to look it up. Well, that's a doozy. But you have paranormal things going on. How do you explain paranormal things that go on in a lot of so-called churches? Well, there are some explanations to that. One of them is that a lot of these are just plain staged. Sorry to people who want to believe in that stuff, but there are enough people who have gotten out there and talked about their experiences that we know a lot of things that appear to be somehow miraculous and happen in churches. A lot of them are staged. There are just too many involved people who have told that tale. And so that definitely does go on. Another thing that goes on is this hypersuggestibility. A lot of these services where these so-called paranormal events happen are places where the services are highly emotional. And there's all this hyper-emotionalism going on. So people who attend those a lot of times are very much in a easily suggestible frame of mind. And they're ready to receive some of these things that go on in some of these churches. And people, when a person's mind is open enough, you can have a powerful influence on people with just the words that you say. Hypersuggestibility, that does exist. And then you have others who will attend these services and they won't be in that hypersuggestible frame of mind, but they get that way because of things that they see going on around them that appear to be miraculous. So they get hypersuggestible, and this, slain in the spirit thing seems to happen, and it kind of spreads like wildfire, like some kind of hysteria, and I think a lot of it is some sort of mass hysteria. So those things go on. You have staging, and you also have people in this hypersuggestible state, and you also have people with dominant personalities who are able to manipulate highly suggestible people. If that's as far as some of this stuff went, well then I guess you could say it would be useless but basically harmless. Interesting to see, maybe. Interesting for some people to experience, but still useless but harmless. But there is a potential problem, though. When you talk about forces actually seizing control of people, that's how the dark side operates. Because there's a verse in the New Testament, I can't remember which one it is right now, it says the spirits of the prophets are subject to the prophets. The light side, the good side, doesn't seize control of people. That's what the dark side does. That's why there are discussions in the New Testament about possession and things like that. So when you're in the area of things being staged and highly suggestible people being dominated by people with strong personalities, that's kind of nonsense, I guess. Maybe interesting to see, maybe interesting for some people to experience, but sort of harmless. But when you get into people being seized control of, as I said, that's how the dark side operates, and that's where it gets really dicey. Can you get a miracle anytime you want one? I absolutely believe that they do exist, and that should give us hope. We should believe in possibilities, and I think that's a very good thing, and that's the only reason for giving this message the other day. But these televangelists, these people who tell you that they've got miracles for sale and you can get a miracle anytime you want one, no. That's basically nonsense. And I'll add one more thing. Are there people in the world who do in fact have specialized gift and unusual specialized powers? I think probably there are, because the Catholic Church goes to a lot of trouble to document that people who are canonized actually were involved in performing miracles. So I think, yeah, there are very possibly people who do have miraculous powers. But here's the thing. They're not going to be these haughty, look at me, how great I am type people. They're not going to be flying around more than likely in private jet aircraft. They're not going to be hitting you up for large amounts of money. They're not going to be calling attention to themselves. They're going to be relatively humble, benign, kind people. They're not going to be these showy, look at how great I am people. So while they do exist, you're probably not going to find them on the religious channels. So what I wanted you to know, this business about you can have a miracle anytime you want one, there's a formula to get one, that's basically nonsense. But in spite of that fact, I do believe that miracles do exist. They are inexplicable and they are mysterious, but they can happen, and that should fill us with hope. And that is the essence of my message on miracles, and I hope you find that, whoever you are and wherever you are, I hope you find that a little bit encouraging. just a good way to think about life. Thank you for your time and have a good day.